Hello, everyone, and welcome to SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted to be joined today by Marc Geall, Head of Product and Technology, HANA, Data and Analytics at SAP. And just as important as that, the man who introduced me to gin. So, welcome, Mark.
Craig, good to be here. Nice to see you again.
You too. And in today's episode, we're going to be taking a deep dive into artificial intelligence and the SAP Business Technology Platform. And just before we get into that, I'd just like to ask you, Mark, what's the one song that you can't help dancing to? While you have a think about that, I had a little think about that myself, and straight away, YMCA came into my head. It just has to be, getting up there, and probably Mr. Brightside's another one that gets me off my seat all the time and running to whatever dance floors in close proximity. So, what's yours, Mark?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Eye of the Tiger, Survivor, just to go with a
Oh,
with a Rocky theme tune
yeah,
from the 80s, or maybe that ages me a little bit, but that would probably be up there.
a classic one to get everybody's blood pumping and get up there training, just
Exactly.
like Sylvester.
And also obviously the link to Philadelphia, right, and Newtown Square and SAP in the US.
Ah, very good. Very nice little tenuous link there to SAP. And while we're on that subject, to start us off, could you just give us a little bit of background on yourself and your role at SAP, please, Mark?
Sure. So, Craig, I've been at SAP now since 2012, which is a long time for me, but not always a long time for some of my SAP colleagues. So, coming up to 12 years this year. I've done quite a number of roles now at SAP. I tend to change my role every 2 years or so. So I started off running strategy for SAP. So I was the chief strategy officer. I have been since then involved with BTP in its many iterations. So I was I suppose one of the first people now that is still within SAP that started when it was SAP Cloud Platform, or even HANA Cloud Platform before that. So HANA Cloud Platform, then SAP Cloud Platform, and then the Business Technology Platform in its three iterations. I started by building out the ecosystem, so working with partners that were to build on the cloud platform. I then moved in and was the COO for the HANA data and analytics business. And then the start of this year, I took over responsibility for our product and technology group within HDNA. So I've been with BTP, I think, since 2015 or so over 9 years. So this is not the new product that everybody thinks it is.
Oh wow, thank you. And indeed, so being involved with that all through kind of that time period through its different iterations and growth and development gives you obviously a deep background in that. And I suppose if we look at AI and artificial intelligence, it seems to be a buzzword at the moment. And some listeners might not know that it's been used in several SAP solutions for some time now. And, especially when it comes to machine learning, analytics. So could you outline how SAP has already been leveraging AI technologies?
Yeah, I mean, if you think back even to the famous SAP Leonardo days, right? This was the first iteration, I suppose, where we were using AI and machine learning capabilities, or looking at how we could apply that into our portfolio. So maybe I take a sort of a perspective on technology and then a perspective on our application portfolio. So within HANA, right, our database, our cloud database, HANA Cloud as it is now, We have a number of libraries. These are the so-called PAL libraries, and these are predictive capabilities that we use. They have machine learning functionality in, so that many of our business applications will use those libraries and those algorithms to apply machine learning use cases. So this could be doing statistical analysis on data embedded into HANA Cloud. Could be looking at predictive capabilities to predict based on the historical information that is there to make recommendations. So we have it from a technology standpoint, and that goes back to 2010 and the introduction of HANA initially. And then the second around the application portfolio. We've had, interestingly, a couple of setups within SAP where we've been looking at how to apply machine learning. We do this within the Ariba network, as an example, looking at data and transactional flows that we have within Ariba to maybe predict changes in behavior and patterns in buying. We've also looked at and have capabilities within SuccessFactors that use now more generative capabilities to define interview questions that you should be asking based on a candidate profile or based on a job description you have. So this is something that has been going on, I would say, for maybe even as much as 10 years in different facets within the SAP portfolio. So it's certainly not new.
Yeah, certainly, obviously been around a while, and from a BTP perspective itself, can you outline some of the AI capabilities are available in BTP?
So obviously the HANA Cloud capabilities are there and they're available within BTP. Now what we've introduced is around more the generative topic, the whole AI core capabilities, where now there will be the ability to connect to different large language models. So that's important, so that customers can now essentially connect to whatever large language model they want to use. But to do that in the context of business data, we need to make sure that customers are not putting their valuable business data into a public or open LLM. So this whole concept of RAG, this retrieval augmented generation, where you can actually fine tune models and do that in a way where you're not exposing your business data to an LLM like OpenAI is key. And here we've introduced some technology within BTP, two in particular that I think will help our customers. One is knowledge graph. There's a knowledge graph function now that is available within HANA, where you can understand the relationship between different data types and different data sets. So you can almost build this sort of ontology, right? This map of the knowledge that you have within your systems within BTP. And the second, and you hear this a lot in the context of Gen AI, is the whole idea of a vector database, right? Where you can now start to embed actual content types into that Gen AI sort of feedback loop, so that it pulls the right artifacts, the right sort of pictures, the right diagrams, the right assets, so that you have some certainty around the response that you're getting from a Gen AI interface.
Okay, so what's the difference, I suppose, between, and it's probably not the right word, I'm sorry, traditional AI and generative AI?
It's a good question. Gen AI is a very in vogue, buzzy type of use case, but it's a subset of overall AI machine learning. So the whole part of generative AI is that you're using a sort of a transformer type use case or a transformer algorithm, where it will look at all the information that it can be exposed to, and you ask a question of it, and based on the knowledge that it has within that data set, it will create a response, it will create an answer. hence the generative term. However, I think Gen AI will not be used in isolation, right? So often you need to look at reinforcement learning as an example to help train and improve the output of some of these. So AI machine learning has been around, certainly since the 60s, right? In different guises. Many of these are being applied in the context of technology. But what we've seen over the last 12 months or so is this emergence of Gen AI, really based on the investment that is being made by Microsoft, by OpenAI and others, which has really benefited from lower cost compute and some new designs in hardware, right? So you've seen the NVIDIA announcement that SAP made, or the partnership that we announced with NVIDIA last week or a couple of weeks ago, which actually builds on some of the technology capabilities that NVIDIA has and now tries to mesh that and bring that together with some of the business capabilities we have with SAP to really drive sort of more mainstream adoption of those types of capability.
Okay, thanks. And just going back to what you were talking about earlier about kind of those generative elements and the use of having data in large language models. So from that perspective, so from a what is a large language model perspective, you mentioned OpenAI. So is that like of ChatGPT, for instance?
The large language model is a trained data set that can be used for different applications. ChatGPT is a very user-friendly way of asking questions of the large language model, and it will give you answers. But there are other types of application that you could build on top of the LLM. Within SAP, it's highly unlikely, and I use those words carefully, but it's highly unlikely that we will ever have our own LLM. Right. What we will do is we will have our own foundation models that use some of the business data in the business context. Right. I think what's important for our customers is confidence around the output that you get from an LLM or a foundation model. Right. If I'm asking a question of my business system, there's much more certainty, right? I know a transaction occurred. I know it occurred on this particular date. I know that it occurred between these two counterparties. If I now want to understand potentially the future, here I may use Gen AI as the way of interacting with the data, but I want to make sure that it's grounded in reality. It's grounded in those historical transactions. And this is where that RAG concept becomes important, because we're starting to apply a degree of certainty and a degree of auditability around the use of Gen AI in the business context.
Mm-hmm. And I think you touched on it when you were talking about how it's, I suppose, how artificial intelligence has moved on in the world, and that Gen AI and the security element, I suppose, where you mentioned, obviously, what do you want to expose your business data to? Because obviously you were putting data out there in, say, the likes of ChatGPT, whatever, it's there virtually for everyone, is my understanding. And is this where, we hear from SAP about responsible AI, and also how SAP is building that generative function, that foundation layer, perhaps what you're talking about, around business data, so customers' business data is kept in a secure environment?
Exactly right. The last thing you want to do is expose your sensitive business data to OpenAI, and then they start to use that to answer questions for other people that are interacting with that large language model, right? I mean, that would have lots of concerns around security and availability of what is a trusted data set. There are also more HR related topics, right? You don't want to expose personal data and what should be private information to these large language models. Now, they have value, right, in terms of how you then interact with business data. And this is where you maybe, as a customer, maybe even want to use your own private LLM. So, we're working with a couple of partners. One is Anthropic, which allows you actually to do your own private cloud deployment or your own private deployment of a large language model for use, right? So you have no risk of now exposing your sensitive business data to to the outside world. And then the second is using business data to train and improve the output of an LLM without exposing it to the public domain.
Okay, thank you.
We know our community, but we don't know yours yet. Why not share the benefits of your UK&I SUG membership with those who don't know about us? The UK&I SUG referral scheme rewards you for helping to grow and develop our community. You can check out the link in the description to find out more about how you can get involved. Terms and conditions apply. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Just staying on, I suppose, along the same lines. That was kind of that security element, but also what we hear about as well is AI bias, if you like, when potential of AI bias when using such technologies. Is this something that we need to be worried about?
Very much so, both from a bias standpoint and also just from this whole concept of hallucination, right? Where large language models can have a tendency to make up information where it doesn't actually have the answer. So ensuring that the information is accurate and the output is accurate and reliable is one aspect, and then to your point, to try and eliminate and remove bias. So making sure it's responsible is another core element of this, and this again is where I think when SAP talks about business AI, we want to ensure that we give our customers comfort and confidence, right? That their data is a trusted asset. It's being used in the right way, but also the answers that it gives as part of these generative AI use cases adhere to the security policies, the privacy policies. They don't have unintentional bias introduced into the outcome, and that's where a lot of the work that's being done within Philip Herzig's team is looking into to make sure that we adhere to that corporate responsibility that we believe is essential if this is to be used, in a broad scale application.
Okay, thank you. And just kind of looking at bringing us back towards BTP now. Sorry, we drifted off well into the realms of AI there. Are there specific artificial intelligence functions built into the development of new applications on BTP, or is the focus on speeding up and enhancing existing applications through AI?
It's a good question. So I'm looking at this in three areas, right? I call it embed, enable, empower, right? So on the embed side, this is where we're looking to bring Gen AI into the user experience, right? So about Geall and the announcement that was made with Geall as a digital assistant, where now I can ask questions of my business data and I will get responses. Geall is very tightly integrated with a product called Just Ask. Just Ask is actually part of the BTP. It's where we now, if you have an analytical question, right? If I'm asking information about, how do my revenues change over time for this particular product, you're asking that of the core business data, and you're probably asking that of an analytical view of your business data. And this is where Just Ask will actually create that response and then give it back to Geall to give back to the user. And that's a core capability that exists within BTP. So this embed use case is the one that actually a lot of the public press is around, right, with Geall integration. That's only a small part of it. The second is what I think of as enable. This is what can BTP become as a core platform, a data platform for customers, so that they can deliver their own AI, machine learning, and Gen AI use cases. So, Christian Klein has talked a little bit about the fact that we can't deliver business AI if we don't have the data, right? The business data is the key part of that. BTP becomes that enabling data platform for customers that want to not only benefit from the use cases that we're delivering across our SAP portfolio, but for their own use cases, right? So if they want to do data engineering to train their own models to either augment or extend on what SAP is providing, that's where you would use BTP as an enabling platform. And then the third is around Empower. And that to me is more about productivity and improvements that you can get. So, imagine now a developer that is now able to use, similar to this whole Copilot, you can use, let's call it CAP GPT, to automatically create code that can then be run and deployed in BTP, right? So we have the capabilities to do that. You can do the same for ABAP, right? So you could have almost RAP GPT, where we're now creating ABAP logic in the same way that you would do that by asking a question of ChatGPT or OpenAI. And then you can also apply that not only to improving development, but also to how you do your build, test, and quality, right? So you can use those types of use cases to actually create test scripts so that you're testing. So in the context of CI/CD and continuous innovation, continuous delivery, we can actually start to use these types of tools to improve productivity across the whole DevOps landscape. So embed is what we hear a lot about, and this is taking Gen AI and improving your users' interaction with the business systems. We need an enabling platform that gives you value out of data. And then you need to empower you need to empower where you're thinking about productivity and improvements in productivity.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting. It just brought a quote back to mind that was said to me in a recent podcast where we were talking about data and analytics, and it was kind of artificial intelligence without good data is artificial stupidity, which I thought was, it resonated quite well, to be honest. It's all about the data. And when we look at that, what role does SAP's artificial intelligence core play when using AI with BTP?
I mean, it will be a key part of the architecture that a customer has. It will allow you almost to bring your own large language model, right? So you can now connect to your own LLM. You can build your own foundation models. You can enhance those using highly relevant business data. So AI Core will become that sort of, let's call it abstraction layer for AI and generative AI type use cases.
Okay, superb. And when we look at back to that empowering element you were talking about earlier, how will AI empower and support users of BTP?
So that's a really good question, and I think this is where I would hope we see a step change in usage and a step change in adoption, because I think that we've done a lot of simplification around how maybe internal IT departments are using the CAP methodology to build extension use cases on BTP, right? You can write your Java code and then you can run and deploy that on BTP. Now, you could use Gen AI to automatically create that code. So that will give you a significant enhancement in productivity. So that would be, I think, one key area. There will be other areas as well where, as we interact and work with the core business data, even looking and understanding, right, what's the semantics of this data model, right? I need all data products in my business relating to the idea of a customer, right? What do I have, right? So one of the things that we're working on, and this is sort of, think of it as labs preview, but you'll start to see this be announced through 2024. But we're now working with each of our lines of business, like SuccessFactors, like Ariba, like S4, to create and publish what we call data products. Data products is essentially an API with metadata that can be discovered. It's discoverable. This will be discoverable within BTP, within DataSphere, right? So DataSphere will now expose or LOBs will expose data products like SuccessFactors around HR information, or it could be Ariba around procurement information. And then a customer now can combine these to now get a view of what their total spend is, right? Both my internal and external spend. So if you think about the problem that we've been trying to solve for a long time at SAP, which is integrating all these business applications that Bill bought in sort of 2010 to 2015, we want to do this through the data layer, semantically through BTP. And this, I think, will become a very important use case for customers, and that will actually support many Gen AI type use cases. So now a customer could now start building new applications, extension scenarios, intelligent data applications on BTP that consume this now rich curated data sets that are made available by each of our lines of business. So I think that's pretty exciting, or should be pretty exciting for customers.
Oh, fantastic. Certainly does sound. So that, looking at obviously what's been developed down the line with BTP, etc., is there anything else, any other insight you can share with us about SAP's AI tools and how they're going to develop in the coming year or so?
I would probably leave that to some of the experts within the AI core team or within the AI team. I mean, you've seen a lot of, or you've seen a big announcement and a big commitment that SAP has made in terms of investing in business AI. On the technology platform standpoint, I've given you hopefully a little look into what we're doing from a technology standpoint. This will now be introduced into our business applications as new capabilities. We're looking at this per line of business, right? So, how do I improve the travel experience for an employee that is using Concur, right? There are some nice use cases in terms of what flights can I use that are adhering to our travel policy, right? So you can use the travel policies of the company as part of that sort of training of the large language model, so that you can always ensure that you're compliant, right? You can do the same in the context of SuccessFactors now. If you think about recruit to retire, where I now want to undertake the hiring of a new person, how do I make sure that the job description doesn't include any bias? How do I use Gen AI to ask the right questions to identify the right type of candidate? How do I use Gen AI to even create a summary of the interview to define, okay, this is what was discussed. These are the key points that were addressed, and this is why maybe even a candidate is best suited to that. So there are many applications that I think will be introduced, and this is what Philip and team is now working with each of our lines of business to identify, and then in a structured way incorporate it into our business portfolio.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you. Lots happening, lots to see, and lots to come for customers. And as we come towards a close now, Marc, is there anything perhaps we haven't discussed that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think we've actually discussed quite a broad set of topics. I think the key here, and maybe not of all of our customers always realize this, but SAP by definition is creating very valuable business data, right? And that data can be used in a lot of new ways. BTP is the way that you can deliver that value internally, right? We like to talk about clean core and extensibility in the context of S4 from a business process standpoint, but the same concepts hold true in the context of business data, right? And DataSphere within BTP is the access layer for that curated data. And I think the art of the possible is in how customers now think about taking that curated business data and now apply this to AI machine learning use cases, to generative use cases, to process automation use cases. And that's where you then start to get the step change in productivity, the step change in how you transform your own business. It's by having certainty that you have a trusted data set, and that you can now apply that and use that in new ways, right? And I think that's what's so exciting. But this is SAP application portfolio with BTP to deliver those high value use cases.
Thank you very much. And where can our listeners learn more about leveraging AI capabilities using BTP, or around business AI and BTP itself?
They should go to ChatGPT and put that in as questions. That would be one way. But no, I mean, I think generally, right, the SAP website now is a good source for a lot of this information. But I think other areas, right, we have this use case repository for BTP where we start to define key use cases that customers can now look at how do they adopt, and we may even have partners that are able to work with them to deliver those use cases. And then the third would be the whole business API hub, right? So within business API, within the business API hub, we're making available a lot of these data artifacts, a lot of the eventing artifacts, a lot of the AI type artifacts available, so customers can sandbox them, but also then start to use those with their own SAP environment. And I think a key here is that a lot of what we've talked about is applicable not only to SAP data, but bringing SAP and non-SAP data sets together is where you get the total value as a business.
Okay, thank you, Marc. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. And to our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Please make sure you do hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and be curious.